and I welcome you to our keynote panel on the topic of forwarding the future of Maine's forest bioeconomy. Today's panel, we're going to hear short presentations from our distinguished panelists, which will be followed by a discussion and questions. If you have questions, please enter them into the chat. I'm very pleased to introduce the panel, Commissioner Heather Johnson of the Department of Economic and Community Development, Hannah Pinkery, Director of the Governor's Office of Policy Innovation in the Future, Jake Ward, Vice President for Innovation and Economic Development at the University of Maine, and Ryan Bushy, the Human Resources and Safety Manager at Louisiana Pacific Corporation in Aroostook County. Panelists, assuming you're all there and ready to go, I'll invite you to make your presentations in the order you were introduced, and you're free to share your screens with the audience for your presentations.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. Certainly look forward to this discussion and look forward to the ongoing work with the forest products industry. You know, as we set out, as the governor mentioned a couple of years ago now, to create the 10-year strategic plan, we really took a look at innovation in our heritage industries and how do we support existing work that's going on and think about creating innovation that will support the supply chains that we have and think about diversifying to be able to solve global problems with our resources. How do we create opportunities that are very specific to Maine? And, you know, came up with lots of ideas. You all came out with some great ideas. What we'll see as we continue to implement those are very clear project streams that do exactly that in a number of ways. And some of the other folks are going to talk about some of these as well. Obviously, as we started implementing the strategic plan, we hit the pandemic. Some of that had to be put on hold for a period of time. Through that process, we also then, the governor called forward an economic recovery committee to take us from where we had planned to start the baseline of the strategic plan back to there. So Steve, a number of others of you on this call were on the Governor's Economic Recovery Committee and did some really great work focusing on some of the really big elements of how do we get from kind of where we are mid-pandemic back to the strategic plan and looking forward. You know, economic recovery in Maine doesn't get us back to where we were. It gets us to where we're trying to get to. You know, I think we all had and recognize clear challenges in our economy pre-pandemic. And so as we think about recovery and the work that the ERC did, as well as the strategic plan, recovery looks very different than the economy we used to have. It looks at kind of forward-looking solutions to global climate change in our industries that support our existing work and think about going forward. So, you know, as we think about evolution, it's not about not doing what we do now. It's about supporting what we do now by finding kind of forward-looking innovation. So I think, Steve, I am at my time, so I'm going to pass it to the next person and look forward to the dialogue after.
My name is Hannah Pinkery. As you've heard, I'm the Director of the Governor's Office of Policy Innovation in the Future, and I'm just going to quickly highlight a little bit of Maine's 4-year climate action plan. I think the governor already laid it out very well, and I know that everyone at the summit is extremely engaged and fully understands the tremendous opportunity in our forest product sector and what it means for our economic future. And I think, again, as Heather highlighted, Steve's been a good part of our work. Pat Straub also was a member of the Maine Climate Council. And so we see both our economic future as well as this incredibly important issue of climate intersecting in ways that are exciting, I think are really mutually beneficial for the people of Maine. So just to quickly run through Maine's climate goals passed by the governor in a overwhelmingly bipartisan bill in 2019, which created the Maine Climate Council. It requires emissions reductions, 45% below 1990 levels by 2030, and at least 80% by 2050. It requires carbon neutrality by 2045, which in a state, as you all know well, 90% forested, it is really about the ability to keep our forests working and keeping them sequestering carbon. Climate planning also is about equity, about the future of our economy and our communities, and the kind of prosperity that we know is possible as we find balance in all of these sectors. So on December 1, we delivered the first 4-year climate action plans in over 10 years to the state. And I'm going to just quickly talk about some of the highlights and how they overlap. So 4 major kind of themes of the plan: reducing emissions to sort of meet this worldwide goal of how do we all bring down emissions to try to slow the impact of climate change, to make our state more resilient to the impacts of climate. And we know that climate is impacting our fisheries, our agricultural sector, as well as our forests. As the climate changes, as we see different kinds of drought patterns, we see exciting opportunity, and this is really what today is all about economic opportunity and prosperity as we make these climate transitions in both the energy sector as well as the forest product sector. And again, about equity. How do we make sure Maine's rural communities feel the positive benefits of some of these climate transitions? And then how do we ensure people on the front lines don't feel the worst impacts? So I'm not going to run through all the strategies. I highly encourage you to check out the plan at climatecouncil.maine.gov. But I would actually say in almost every one of the 8 climate strategies, there is a piece for the forest product sector. So the future of transportation in Maine, obviously a lot about reducing our emissions, but we see alternative fuels as an exciting opportunity. As we modernize Maine's buildings, forest products and forest products from Maine are really crucial. So whether it's new wood fiber insulation products, all kinds of wood products that embody carbon for the long term, like CLT, other kinds of advanced mass timber, we see incredibly exciting opportunity for Maine's forest product sector to really drive regional growth. Obviously, the energy sector is a big one that specifically includes creating more highly efficient combined heat and power, as well as a variety of other energy producing activities that come from the forest product sector. And then excitingly, obviously, the job creation associated with all of this. I will just lastly end with Maine's, really the key part of our goal is sequestering carbon. There's no way we reach carbon neutrality without successful and healthy working forests. So really a big part of our work, and we currently have a carbon forest task force whose work is underway to think about how do we create more incentives to encourage improved carbon sequestration for our medium-sized landowners. So lots of other stuff about our communities, and we are all part of big and small Maine communities. So we know that these issues are important. I will just say the governor set a specific goal as part of our climate action plan to double the number of clean energy jobs in Maine to 30,000 jobs by 2030. And we do see a number of these jobs in the forest product sector. Again, we've heard a lot, and you'll continue to talk today about some of the exciting benefits in the wood fiber insulation and CLT and other kinds of wood products, but we do see those kind of jobs as part of this clean energy future. So the governor is very focused on it. I'm sure we'll talk more in the panel, but as we think about investments through the state budget, investments through incoming federal funds, we really see support for natural resource industries as really one of the most exciting parts of the governor's agenda. And she did announce in her State of the State significant investment in innovation and processing in our heritage industries. I think we're going to be talking a lot about how do we make sure this happens in this sort of new energy future. And I will just say workforce is something we could probably have a whole nother summit on, because obviously making sure we have Mainers trained for these jobs, these exciting, good paying jobs, is obviously crucial to making sure all of this works. So again, please check out the plan, climatecouncil.maine.gov. I will just say that our partnership with so many folks who are on this Zoom screen, from UMaine to Steve and Pat and many others, has been really crucial, has allowed us to be driven by science as well as exciting opportunities. So again, we look forward to continuing to work with all of you as we implement this exciting plan for Maine. So I will stop there and pass it back to Steve.
Jake, you're up. You ready?
Well, thank you all this morning. This has been a great summit, and it's a pleasure to do a quick overview of some of the R&D innovation activity that's going on. It's really, really rewarding this morning to hear it mentioned over and over again by so many people. So at least the message is getting out there. First of all, I'd like to say, it's been a real pleasure to be part of the For Maine activity, and there's dozens of you Maine folks that are in all the different subcommittees, and I couldn't go through the whole list of everybody to thank them all, but certainly I'd like to shout out to Aaron Weiskettel and Bob Wagner, who had a concept for this roadmap early on before the EDAP process even got started. So that really was a model that we shaped a lot of this around. At UMaine, we've been really trying to aggregate a lot of the different activities throughout the university. As here you can see, we talk about forest management, forest products, and communities. And so we have a tremendous amount of activity, partnerships, and collaborations in all of those. I'm only going to quickly talk about some of the forest products activity right now. There we go. You've heard a lot about Nano Cellulose, so I thought I'd just kick off with the updates to our pilot production plant. We have one of the only large-scale pilot production plants in the world making nanocellulose available to a variety of applications. Currently, we're at 800-pound-day capacity, but we're working on new advances to get us up to 2,000 pounds a day, or up to 2 tons a day, I should say. And that starts also looking at continuous production. So it really is a model for what companies could turn on and go live with right now. And it is becoming a fundamental new material feedstock for so many different applications. And that's why we've really started to approach this idea of nanocellulose valley. We are making that material available to people doing product development throughout the world. And so we have some of our own innovations, as we've heard, but also looking at other people's problems and solving them with the idea that attracting them to Maine, whether it's to commercialize our activity or their own activity, are really the opportunity. And just here are a few of the rock stars. We've heard about the packaging level, Doug Boesfield, the fake bone, I should say the artificial bone, Mike Mason and Mehdi Tajvidi really looking at the using it as binder in construction materials. I also would like to point out that Mike Mason and his team are part of a new Maine-based startup called Xylogen that is aggressively pursuing the medical applications of nanocellulose as we speak. It flows into construction material very easily as we start looking at nanocellulose as a binder to replace other things. But certainly construction and building materials is another area where we have a lot of expertise, and certainly the mass timber component of it, we run the Mass Timber Commercialization Center, 50 people from industry and construction, architects, engineering, a lot of good work going on, and continuing to do evolution of new approaches to using mass timber, CLT, structural round timber, other types of things like that, especially with Maine species. Then, of course, the wood fiber installation folks have been talking about. We've been working with Go Labs for the last few years and are also continuing to look at the next generation of materials once they're up and running. The pilot plant jet fuel, we do have a large scale pilot facility over co-located at the Old Town Mill, ND Paper Mill. It is available to do trials for biofuels. That's where we do our jet fuel work funded by the Department of Defense, but also doing a lot of work on home heating oil with some startup companies, as well as some heating oil dealers in Maine. We have run trials with some of those biofuels at the University of Maine Presque Isle to demonstrate that the biofuels as a drop-in fuel, 100% replacement, can be used today, and those companies are pursuing plant development. And then part of that is we just got a new Department of Defense grant that will continue to upgrade the facility and look at the bolt-on technology. So not only producing biofuels, but other biochemicals and polymers and fibers, so that you have really truly the biorefinery model that has been demonstrated in Finland, and being able to pilot scale to show real commercial application. Can't go anywhere without talking about the world's biggest 3D printer, of course. One of our big projects that we have a great partnership with Oak Ridge National Labs on, as well as many of the other Department of Defense applications. Projects on the way. You may have seen about the world's largest 3D printed boat. But that activity is moving aggressively forward to use Maine-based fiber into plastics and other bioplastics for large structures that will lose large volumes of material. And certainly when we talk about the residual material that can go into nanocellulose and macrocellulose, we need markets for large volume to really take up that supply. And so one of the bigger new areas that we're really jumping into is affordable housing. Can we do rapidly printed affordable housing using large amounts of materials? We've already demonstrated shelters for Department of Defense activities, Army Corps of Engineers, and then now we have customers coming in daily to look at other large uses, such as the infrastructure components, wind blade molds, vehicle components, aquaculture tanks, Maine boat builders. We actually have way more work than we have capacity to serve right now, but we're working on solutions for that. That's a real quick overview. I would point that we've organized a lot of this stuff on our website under the Maine Forest Economy. I point out Shane O'Neill has been a big partner in all of the For Maine activity, has really done a great job at tying these pieces together and then doing direct outreach. So we see Shane as the front door to any issue related to the forest economy. James Beaupre, who's also works with us on the commercial development, working with companies, is also co-chairing the Emerging Technology Act group and has been working closely with Maine and Company and helping doing technology vetting to a lot of these opportunities. And of course, I've been here to do what anybody else needs me to do. If you go to that website, there's links to a dozen plus centers, everything that we have going on. Well, I'll skip that right now. But there's a lot of community related work, working with the affected communities. There's a lot of workforce development related work. Forest management, of course, are working directly with private landowners. So we see the forest as a very dynamic ecosystem. I think everybody understands that, but the forest economy is as dynamic, and you need to bring all the players together.
All right, great. Thank you, Jake. And Ryan, you ready?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. My name's Ryan Bushy, and I'd like to thank Steve for giving me the opportunity to speak with all of you about a couple items that I'm really passionate about. I'm going to share my screen and use a PowerPoint to help lead this discussion. First item, there we go. First item I'd like to talk about is my employer, LP, and our investment that we've made here in the state of Maine, investments of the past, and give you a little history about LP and our 40-year relationship here with the state of Maine. Back in 1981, LP made the investment in an oriented strand board mill in New Limerick. We were producing OSB in 1982. That mill ran extremely well for many, many years, and it was time to make an additional investment in the mill at that time as the life cycle was working against us. In 2007, 2008, LP made another investment in Maine to the amount of $160 million to add a laminated strand lumber line. That investment has went really well for us. It's continued to run until this day. And then we're looking at what's another investment we can make at this mill. And we needed to put some capacity online for our customers around a new product that we've been making for about a decade now here strongly at LP. And that's our Smart Side. It's a siding product, and we're really excited about that. Working, on bringing this project to the state of Maine took a collaborative effort. I really want to thank the state of Maine. It started with the governor's office, Commissioner Johnson, Charlotte Mace. All those players stepped in and were extremely helpful. When it came to our federal and state delegation, there wasn't a meeting that they missed. They were supportive. They wanted to know exactly what we needed, how we could bring this product to the state of Maine, because we're not making anything like it in the state of Maine at this time. And it really speaks to everything about this conference is about looking for new and innovative ways to support our forest product industry here in the state of Maine. So what we're up to right now is the $150 million investment to be able to convert our OSB press to a manufacturing press of Smart Side product. There'll be additional products that can be made besides the siding product itself, such as the trim, the soffit, and even a ProStruct flooring product that can be utilized with the same press by changing out plates. We're excited about having many products that can be made all in this one facility. This will bring on 220 million square feet of smart side capacity for Louisiana Pacific and our customers, which is much needed. The other benefits is we're going to be looking to procure about 25% more wood. We'll go from an annual consumption of around 300,000 tons to up at 400,000 tons when we're running at full capacity. And of course, you know what this will do for, a small community. It will help out all the small businesses, not only during the time of the construction, which is, starting now, and contractors coming on site, staying in our local hotels, eating at our local restaurants, but this supporting the economy at a time where all these folks in the hospitality and small business industry could surely use it, as this COVID has really stressed their business model over the past 12, 16 months. Next, I'm going to jump into another effort, put on a different ball cap, and that's workforce development. If you've tuned in to Ryan Wallace's breakout session, he shared with you a lot of the work we've been doing. I am the chair of the workforce committee for the 4 Main project. Really excited about all the work we're doing there. I have a passion for developing our youth, bringing people into the forest products industry, and sharing all the great jobs that we have to offer for everybody. Just to recap that, if you weren't able to be in that breakout session with Ryan, we're assessing what are our needs in the forest products industry now and in the future. Need to understand the career pathways. We have many great institutions, many great pathways currently, but we need to get a grip on what those are. We need to identify the gaps. What don't we have? What's not working to get our folks into the forest products field in different careers? We have many great programs going on all across the state, from local civic organizations to Project Learning Tree, things like that. We need to leverage everything we have now and to continue to grow those. We need to develop these clear pathways for our youth, our educators, and our parents. When we talk to the communities and we talk to employers and we talk to educators, we found out that there's gaps in that, and that's what we're aiming to fill. We're going to do that we still have lots of time and we have funding to assist us. We need to develop different videos, training models, brochures, and things for everybody to be using in the state of Maine as you're talking to people in your communities on how you can get people into the forest products industry, or at least show them what great opportunities we have for careers in forest products of all sorts. And we know this is not a one and done deal. Anyone that's been around forest products for quite some time will tell you it continuously evolves, and that's what we need. We need industry to evolve and change. But it means we need to tweak the systems. We need to tweak our education. We need to tweak our communication style, all those sorts of things. So we're working on a long-term continued development of these programs and resources for far after the 4 Main effort goes away, and we'll continue on with all the efforts that we're working in.
Great. Thanks to all of you. Really appreciate the participation. And there's a remarkable amount of unexpected, perhaps, but logical flow through from the breakout sessions to what all of you just shared with the audience. One of the focuses that comes across in the chat questions is also one that I wanted to make sure we addressed, and maybe I'll start with Hannah. The focus of energy solutions for Maine. There are those who are less than excited about converting solid wood into energy. But we are looking at a plan that creates drop-in replacement, renewable feedstock sourced biofuels in a number of places. And I'm very pleased that you also mentioned the opportunity associated with incredibly high efficiency CHP projects. So could you share with the group a little bit more about how wood to energy, wood as energy fits into your climate plan?
Sure. And I call it our climate plan because now it really is the climate plan for the whole state. And again, we were very grateful to have your industry, the forest products industry, really helpful and really at the table fully. So it's a great question, Steve. I mean, I would say certainly the climate plan both emphasizes electrification, but also highlights our forest products industry as a real opportunity on the energy as well as other product side. I mean, obviously it is a fierce debate about biofuels, and it will probably play out nationally somewhat in the next couple of years as people debate carbon neutrality. But clearly, I think we can make a good case in Maine that using wood residuals to create fuels has both a carbon benefit. These things are going to break down and produce other types of greenhouse gases if we don't turn them into fuels, and they are a good replacement for things like oil in our furnace. Obviously, lots of exciting work happening in the aviation sector. So we know that really it has to be an all of the above strategy. And that's how we are thinking about it. I mean, the same thing, highly efficient combined heat and power. We are looking at different ways to incentivize that through both energy procurement and incentives. We think it makes a lot of sense in certain circumstances because there's not an easy way to decarbonize certain kinds of industrial processes, large heating operations. So we see it as an opportunity. So, I will say in the coming year, our Department of Environmental Protection is really going to be advancing rules and a kind of a process by which we define how does Maine get to carbon neutrality. And as part of that, we will be thinking about, our wood is sequestering carbon as it grows, and as we burn it, it still emits, but there is a balance there. And we want to be very clear and transparent about how we report those results. But again, I think this is a pretty evolving area of science and discussion at the federal level, certainly at the international level. And, I think Maine is bullish on an all of the above strategy.
Great. I appreciate that perspective. There are folks who miss some of those subtle nuances. And one of the things that For Maine has been particularly pleased about is how practical the administration is being with regard to all of this. And we appreciate that because we see the built-in benefits to not only jobs growth, but rural economy growth and rural communities growth. And so thank you. Another one, Heather, let me come to you. We have developed within For Maine a memorandum of understanding between the University of Maine, the Department of Economic and Community Development, Maine and Company, and participants on For Maine. Jake mentioned it when he talked about James Beaupre's participation. To me, that is a terrific model of ways that we can bring awareness of opportunity and then advance the culmination of potential projects to Maine. Can you share a little bit with folks about your vision for how we might advance some of these new product developments as well as traditional market developments, replacement of the digesterin J, for example?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So, I think we all have this vision of kind of the primary needs right now and kind of the long-term needs. And I think it's important that this group starts to think about how we balance those needs. What's the immediate kind of gap there to fill the short-term digester delta with kind of this longer vision of how do we create broader innovation that stabilizes the supply chain. So as things do change, right, because other things are going to happen, both market-driven factors and kind of, unnatural factors like a digester explosion, those are going to continue to happen over the course of time. And the more diverse we have this industry and these supply chains, the stronger we will weather those types of challenges. This memorandum of understanding that you referenced, Steve, I think is really unique. Not many states have partnerships between academic institutions, private sector, public sector, and attraction elements to try to go find markets and attract markets into the state. And so our ability to kind of all work together and figure out where those opportunities lie is really critical to how we go forward. And so far, I think we've targeted, right? We have a couple of targets. We have some programming that we're about to stand up that will be much more aggressive, but attracting that investment into Maine and starting to create those markets. You know, it really doesn't seem to matter who you talk to in the supply chain. We also have just released a survey and lots of results coming in, more than I would have expected coming in, more recipients coming in. And all of them talk about new markets and new markets for these outputs and outputs across this chain. So that will be the focus, really trying to solve the short-term challenge on a path to long-term solutions.
Great, thank you. And Jake, one for you. I often make you made a significant reference in your presentation to nanocellulose, and I always joke that, oh, come on, guys, nanocellulose is so small that I have to have an electron microscope to see it. When are we going to actually move enough volume to move the needle and make it impactful for Maine? You provided some terrific examples, and if you would expand on those volumetric examples. The repairing bone example is wonderful, but we'd use such an infinitesimal volume that nobody would ever notice. What are those binders and cement additives? What are those kinds of things that could truly create a nascent industry based on, as you put it, Old Town becoming the Nano Cellulose Valley?
Sure, thanks. And I think it is actually reflecting on some of the comments that Hannah just made, is really demonstrating that the nanocellulose as a technology is an adequate replacement for other types of fibers and fillers. So there's continues to be that applied research and comparing the fiber capacity. And, you know, for example, in some of the bioplastics applications now, you know, we're working on the combined of cellulose and thermoplastics and starting to get the, you know, strengths that are equivalent to higher strength materials or traditional materials, fiberglass and other types of resin systems. So as we develop that, then the markets start opening up. So the near term things, the demands that we're seeing right now are for, you know, large tooling and large volume, large structures that would take a lot of volume. As we start moving that, that's in one area that is looking at, you know, automotive applications, marine applications, and things like that. And we do have ongoing projects with, you know, commercial operations, like I said, automotive manufacturers and boat builders that are nearing the time where this will start really trying to push into the competitive space. A lot of that is driven about the economics, but also the performance. In the building materials space, very encouraged by the technology that Mehdi and Tajavidi and Doug Boesfield working on, using nanocellulose as a binder for sort of a resin-free MDF-like board. We have seen a lot of publication of that activity recently and starting to field inquiries from the construction materials industry on whether or not that can come to scale sooner than later. And so those are two that have that larger volume things. The additives to cement materials, there's some interesting work going on. We just did some intellectual property work on actually not just nanocellulose, but biochar into cement. And it really is also looking at, you know, that as carbon, not only strength enhancements, but carbon sequestration opportunities there. So those tend to be the very large volume. Certainly the packaging, some of the work that Doug Boesfield is really advancing right now in looking at how to layer it along with paper manufacturing to be a replacement for single-use plastic. And again, we're getting good traction on that. A lot of that is market driven. So the work that we're doing, for example, it was publicized over the last year with Poland Spring and looking at how to bring in biomaterials into their whole space, Poland Spring, Nestle Waters, North America. Now we have customers that are really pushing that. And there's recently been some more development with companies that are looking at how to use the fibers in other types of thermoform packaging, large volumes that you would see in supermarkets and fast food restaurants and things like that. So the world is paying attention, companies are paying attention. The more consumers want to see the replacements of some of these other materials, the faster those things will happen.
Great. It's having the university focus, as your president noted in her part of the video earlier, on forest products and all the forest products research that goes on is truly invaluable. There have been a couple of references in the chat. I want to steer this one to you, Ryan, about first and foremost, congratulations. As Angus pointed out, you know, it was great news to him to hear that what you have done and the advancement that you're making. And one of the questions is, what insights can you share about the factors that made LP choose Maine for that investment? And let's use that as a jumping off point to talk a little bit more about more mass timber considerations and opportunities. I'll get back to the rest of you on.
Yeah, I'd love to take the question. And this young lady by the name of Mary Grace Schley that you might know seemed to buzz that up for us. So that's great. I hope you're all settled out in California, Mary Grace. So I would love to talk about the relationship that we've developed with the state of Maine over the past 40 years. I've been with LP for 13 years now, and it's been great getting to work on different committees and know different leaders and whatnot in the state. And that's definitely helped our relationship. When it was time to start looking into this potential investment in the state of Maine, I will say our company was obviously looking at other locations as well. Being from Aroostook County, growing up in Houlton, moving away for post-secondary education, then coming back for my professional career, I have a vested interest. And anybody that knows me, I get pretty passionate about it. And, you know, Commissioner Johnson's laughing, but when I talked to her and asked for her assistance, I mean, the best part was instantly they gave Charlotte Mace, they introduced me to her, and what a wonderful lady. She was there for me on every step of the way to answer every question I had. And having that resource that's directly tied to everything around the state of Maine made things so much easier. And then working with our federal and our state delegation, right? Agnes King's been part of LP here since he was governor. He helped us back on our last project and when he was in that capacity. And now moving forward into this new one, he immediately wanted to know anything he could do to help out. And I'll talk about his character for a minute. About 30 minutes after we formally made our announcement and the press release went out, my cell phone rang, and it was the senator that's saying, "This is awesome news, Ryan. Wanted to call you up again, continued support for anything." And that continued with phone calls from everybody. So that relationship's truly special. We talk about the state of Maine as one big community, and I feel it really is. I also wanted to talk a little bit about some of the resources that we have that put things over the edge with some funding. We've worked with Maine Department of Transportation and Nate Moulton and his team for years to continue to develop our rail sidings and infrastructure that we need for continued development here. That's so important. And for those of you from where up here in the Aroostook County, the state of Maine actually owns the mainline rail. They lease the operation of that to MNR, who operates the rail service on it. So that relationship and continue to make investment not only in the rail that the state of Maine owns, but the siding in which we need to operate on here at our mill, that was essential to this investment. And it's going to be a long-term investment for LP to continue to develop the siding as we grow our business, because there is additional capacity available here in the state of Maine. So I look forward to maybe more things in the future very similar to this. One last thing I just want to talk about. I want to put on my other hat that I spoke about here for Maine, Steve, is one part that I really like and we're digging into is we have many non-industry specific jobs that we can tap into for the forest products industry when it comes to the manufacturing side. All those folks that work in manufacturing, very similar skill sets. It's just a matter of figuring out the niche that you enjoy working in. So we need to make sure to share what awesome work environments we have in our manufacturing sites of all sorts around forest products. So those folks might want to look at another opportunity. And as Ryan Wallace said in his presentation, we need to look internally strongly, but we also need to look at bringing folks in from the outside for this quality of life that we have here in Maine and what that means, to them and their families as well. So all those pieces put together, our strong workforce, the support of the state of Maine with our relationship over the past 40 years, and this workforce development that's going on in the state to know that we have a future workforce, those were all the different variables that went into the decision for LP to pick this next investment in New Limerick, Maine.
Thank you, Ryan. It's so great to hear stories about how well the administration is serving its constituencies, all of them. That's a terrific story. Heather, as part of the economic recovery work, there were a few different subcommittees that focused on the opportunity for the state to lead by example in procurement. And whether it's, they can make commitments to biofuels, they can make commitments to mass timber building structures, they can convert old boilers to, high efficiency new boilers. Can you give a sense of how all of that might play through and work towards advancing the four main goals?
Yeah, Steve, I think this early adopter concept, right, and the state being kind of an early customer for some of this work is always something we need to be evaluating. And Commissioner Figueroa and her team do the purchasing and procurement standards and are looking at kind of that as a concept and trying to determine how and when we can use that and how that would apply to forest products and other industries. We're also certainly looking at kind of standards. The governor just released a lead by example model, right, that will ask state agencies to be thoughtful about climate responsibility when we make purchases, as people are looking to renovate buildings using wood fiber insulation, as people are looking at new buildings, potentially considering CLT and OSB and other choices there that allow state government to try to lead by example. So I think there are a couple of pieces there. One is kind of this early adopter, first customer kind of concept. The other is the lead by example, which is actually Hannah's program. So Hannah, if you want to jump in here, I think that's a really good piece to pass to.
Heather has done an excellent job, and I don't need to add much. I would just say she's absolutely right. The governor is really excited about this work, and I think just stay tuned because I think we're thinking about ways to really operationalize some of these specific things, especially on the wood product side. Would say the state has had early conversations with some of the biofuel companies about opportunities and still, lots to work out there to see how to actually make it work as these companies come online. But I think there's strong interest and really a passion coming directly from the governor's office on this. So again, I think it's a great area of partnership, and one Jake as well continues to remind us and is a really good promoter. So I think we're thinking about a lot of exciting things, and we're always open to new ideas as well. Actually, so check out our report. We do have a new lead by example report. And it really is saying, we put out this climate plan. The state should be leading. We should be doing exactly the things we say in the plan at the state level. Definitely would say, pass it off to Jake too. We hope the university is doing the same, and we know that they probably are. So lots of excitement there, and I think opportunities for Maine in that area.
Thanks, Hannah. And while you've got your mic unmuted, there are a couple of questions in the chat. One is to ask you to restate the governor's commitment and your office's commitment to sequestering carbon in trees that are being grown for, in most cases, forest products. And the analogy that I always use is the trees do a great job of sequestering carbon. It's the industries and all the products we make that sink that carbon into long-term holding mechanisms. So if you would share that. And then there's another one about hydro energy and how does it fit into alternative energy sources within Maine as compared to solar and wind focus?
Big ones, lots of questions. I would just say I saw Jim Robbins' question about forest management practices. And I mean, our first goal is to keep the forest. You know, we don't want to lose farmland. We don't want to lose forest land. We know that these lands are sequestering carbon. So to keep them working allows them to continue to sequester carbon. The actual management practices, I think, is an area where we see a lot of ongoing collaboration between the industry. I would say, you know, Maine, Ivan Fernandez, Adam, who you've heard from. I mean, I think understanding the varying practices and the varying sustainability practices that, you know, best sequester carbon, as well as continue to allow the industry to work. I mean, that we are really looking at this as an issue of ongoing collaboration. And I think there's a lot of science that's continuing to be done in this area, again, being led by Maine. But certainly we know that good management practices allow both, you know, keeping these forests sequestering carbon and keeping them working. That is really, I think, the solution the governor is interested in. And we think that those things are definitely mutually possible. Hydro, I mean, I would just say, I wish Dan Burgess, the director of the governor's energy office, was here, but I think most people are aware that Maine has a renewable portfolio standard that requires 80% renewables on our grid by 2030, which is very ambitious, and it is why we are seeing an increase in some hydro projects being relicensed, wind, lots of solar development happening in Maine. And honestly, we're thinking about that carefully because we don't want to lose a lot of forest land and farmland as that happens, but we know we need a lot more clean energy on our grid to meet our emissions reduction goals. Hydro is part of our RPS standard right now, and it will continue to be. Clearly, there's lots of new things. This is not a forum about offshore wind, but Jake could give you a whole forum on that, and there's a lot of excitement in the jobs area there. I do see we could put biochar in the concrete, and then these things go off into the Gulf of Maine. So maybe there is a minor forest products angle there. So I would just say that, again, it's kind of an all of the above. There's lots happening right now on dams, and I don't want to get into dams and hydro and sort of all the stuff that's happening. Clearly, that's an area of interest and controversy, but I just would say that, again, it's sort of an all of the above. I mean, we do see these new technologies as probably being dominant, and they are more cost effective for consumers, but certainly these are areas for debate, and hydro is certainly part of our current standard and probably will continue to be.
All right, great, thank you. And Heather, let me steer Jake's question to you. Obviously, the federal government has allocated a significant new source of money. And within the framework of the Economic Recovery Committee advice, there was lots of recommendation about all the good ideas you could use to spend money if it was available. Well, guess what? There's going to be some available. So can you share with the group how you see this perhaps helping towards the evolution of the bioeconomy?
Yeah, you know, the Rescue Act money and some of the details around that are still being formed. There are some additional financial streams as well to supplement the Rescue Act. I would also say Rescue Act money is coming at multiple tiers. So the state will get a tier of money, counties will get a set of money, and localities will get a set of funds as well. So there is a real opportunity, I think, for all of us to plug in together and look at some of these opportunities very collaboratively. So private sector, all three layers of government potentially, as well as the academic universe, to start to put together packages like Ryan talked about for workforce, and really to think about how do we incent some of this, how do we attract some of this work to Maine, how do we build a workforce, both short-term quickly to meet the immediate need, as well as kind of over the course of time, how do we work with students? How do we get students into internships in forest products and, you know, electrical work and renewable energy work that can kind of support this industry as we go forward? So I think we will try to look at these options as some immediate short-term gap fillers, right? There have been impacts that we need to immediately close, and the ERC called some of those out. But then the ERC also gave us a roadmap forward that had some really big opportunities that could be transformational to our economy long term. And I think as we look at these funds that are coming and learn more about what we can and can't do with them, and what kind of each layer can and can't do, I think there's a real opportunity for us to sit around the table together and leverage the work of the ERC and the strategic plan and kind of immediate business vision and need to create a package that can be transformational. I mean, when the ERC first did the report, honestly, I looked at it and I said, well, geez, I sure wish I had $100 million to spend on broadband. And now, right, there may be the opportunity that there is a separate broadband stream of funding that is pretty significant. And thanks to Senator King and his team and the federal delegation for their support of that specific stream. So I think, Steve, there's more we don't know than what we do know right now about it. But I think we are seeing it as a real opportunity for collaboration at the local level, at the state level, and with the private sector to create some real big transformational opportunities.
And the phrase that I keep hearing about is and I'm going to use the word collaboration, but it's the keep working together. One of the things that I think this whole process has proven to all of us, and pick any one of the elements that has been a component of it, is the way we are all working together is advancing the ball significantly. So I see nods in the group, and I assume that the rest of the audience would agree that there's a lot to be gained by continuing this. And having the university be a part of all of this, they maintain a little bit of a step back and taking the broader, somewhat academic view, but also recognizing and moving forward on the really good practical ideas. Jake, I mentioned in the intro to the summit that we got, the DOE offered that $61.4 million new biofuels research kind of thing. I know that you're tapping into, well, let me let you explain. All of the various national labs that you work with, how does the university go about bringing all of those opportunities to Maine in an informed fashion that can drive economic development as well as job growth, et cetera?
Thanks, Steve. I think it really does ride on the fact that we've got incredibly talented and well-connected faculty and staff, student researchers that are keeping their eyes and ears open all the time, participating in national forums, and really trying to connect all that activity to what For Maine's all about. So understanding and being aware first and foremost about the need and the importance of things in Maine. We've started these activities going back to our historic relationship with the forest sector, the pulp and paper industry. So it has been an evolutionary process as we grow and advance. Paying attention to what is going on around the world. Some of our leaders in the biofuel area have participated in the European efforts for a long time. So then it's going out and making sure that as those opportunities become available through the federal government, Department of Energy, building the connections with the researchers, the labs, the programs managers, but always keeping in mind, this is the resource that we have. The working forest, the industrial forest that we all describe so well, has such a huge need to have all parts of the wood used in order to be a strong economy. And so making sure we understand that we're looking for opportunities for the underutilized components like the residuals, and putting 2 and 2 together to drive that towards a biofuel approach, the Department of Energy, embedded energy approach, economic advantage has really just been fundamental since one. And I would go back to say the transition point for us as UMaine really was the formation of what started out as the Forest Bioproducts Research Initiative, which was stood up by a fairly large NSF grant that then became the Forest Bioproducts Research Institute. And it just goes to the strength of, and go all the way back to the state has invested in R&D through the legislative appropriation that allows us to leverage the National Science Foundation, that build the fundamental capacity, that then says, you know what, to DOE and everybody else, we can solve your problem and we can bring the best technology to bear to where it makes the most sense for me.
Great. Unfortunately, I very much appreciate your participation in all this, but it's time to begin wrapping up. I want to give each of you a chance. If there's something that has been sitting on the tip of your tongue you haven't been able to get out yet, offer it now or forever hold your peace. So Ryan, you got anything else you want to add?
I want to thank you all for the opportunity to share a story here at LP today, and look forward to seeing some of our product on the homes around the state of Maine in the summer of 2022. And everybody have a great weekend.
Thank you. Hannah.
Ryan said it well. It's a beautiful day out there. Please enjoy it. And Steve, I think your focus on partnership is really what this is all about. I think we see exciting opportunities where our climate goals, our economic goals, as well as, you know, what makes Maine a great state. We have so much opportunity. So just really look forward to working with all of you in partnership, and thanks for having me.
Great. Heather.
Thanks. And I want to kind of echo those. And Ryan, thank you and LP for your investment. We really appreciate it. It's a real great opportunity for all of Maine, not just Northern Maine. And we look forward to kind of supporting that. And I would say we talk a lot about these plans, right? And these plans are important because they give us a roadmap to where we want to go. But the real value, I think, is in this implementation phase. And that's really where For Maine and the collaborative work that happens with these groups is happening. And so we look forward to continuing the implementation work in partnership with all of you.
Isn't it nice to have a bunch of reports that are not just sitting on a shelf? Jake, anything left?
I just would echo again that how important For Maine has been to really bringing everybody together, to bringing so many different viewpoints together, but really creating some alignment and a venue for everybody to share, whether it was concerns, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It is an incredible model, one of the most rewarding things I've done in my 30-year career. And then the final piece is we've got so many young and brilliant people involved in all of these activities, and they are so energetic, and it's just really good to see that enthusiasm, and we need to capture that as much as we can.
That's how we're going to keep those young people here to be our workforce for the future. So great. Well, thanks to all four of you. We really appreciate your participation. It's active, it's engaged, it's knowledgeable. It's very, very important. So thanks. So it comes to me to wrap up the conference for today. I want to thank everybody for your participation. I hope you appreciate that it is an exciting time for Maine's forest and our economy. And we're going to continue to engage on all of these issues. We hope you'll join us. We hope you'll join and share our vision of the thriving, innovative, and diverse industries that will provide good jobs in vibrant Maine communities. Continue to follow our work on formaine.org. Those of you who do the social media thing, For Maine is also on Facebook and LinkedIn. We value your participation. We thank you for being here, and we wish you a very good day and weekend.